Here's why this is that no one else is going to get. Reporters want access to information no one else is going to get.
Welcome back to another episode on the Entrepreneur's Toolkit. This time we're talking about best practices in PR with Peter Harris, the founder of the Harris Agency. Thanks, Edison Partners, for creating this series with us. Peter, so great to see you today.
Yeah, you too, Aaron. Thanks for having me on.
So there's a lot of what goes into PR, how it ties into the marketing umbrella, how entrepreneurs and startups can leverage PR as a mechanism. So first, can we talk about what's the difference between PR and marketing?
Sure. It's a commonly asked question, and I think one that in today's day is a little bit harder to answer than say 10 years ago. Public relations, PR. I look at it more as a marathon. It's how do you build a company's reputation over time? The famous adage, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, 20 seconds to lose it, still holds true today. Although I think you can lose it a lot faster with social media than in 20 seconds. So reputation, public relations to me is really all about driving and creating and enhancing a company's reputation over time. How do your stakeholders perceive the company? Good, bad, neutral, whatever it may be. Marketing is a bit more, not, I wouldn't say a sprint, but definitely more focused on sales leads, filling the funnel, generating, bottom line results for an organization that a quicker turn maybe around a product or whatever it may be. But, very much they work in tandem with each other. And I just think, because of how much communications is meshing these days across channel, I'd like to think we're working so much more in tandem, the marketing teams, than ever before. I mean, PR is not a function of marketing, but so much more teams are working together. It's more blended, it's more integrated than it has to be. Than it's ever been, and really it has to be.
So do you see PR more related to brand building, marketing more related to sort of sales and lead gen?
Yeah, I think marketing and PR both ultimately are about enhancing brand equity. Strong reputations drive sales over time. Marketing more so, very much a sales driven, I would argue a sales driven function, but both are ultimately about driving brand equity for any organization. So yeah.
So for a startup, how should they think about leveraging PR to impact their growth?
So I guess I would first start by saying, don't think of PR as being, as the old, description goes, of being about press releases. I think particularly for startups, right? It's a lot more strategic than that. I think you have to be, very thoughtful. You have to be very patient, and you have to be very consistent. Building brand, building reputation, particular reputation does take time. And I think for startups in particular is first understanding what's your story. What story do you have that you think you want to tell to the marketplace? If you're a startup looking for money, why should someone invest in you? If you're a startup looking to sell more product, why should your prospective customer buy your product over someone else? If you're looking to hire talent, what is it about your organization that prospective employees or talent should want to know about your organization? So, PR, public relations, really relationships with various audiences. For startups, I think first it's identifying who's the audience you're most interested in talking to or communicating with. What's the story you want to tell that person? And what are your assets that you have to really define what that story is and why people should pay attention to you versus anybody else that's out there talking to them at the same time.
Is there an exercise, because I think what you just mentioned is so critical to this. I think it's common for startups to think everyone should care. This is all super interesting, and it should better be on CNN, Fox, and MSNBC by the end of the day. And it may be that the reality is it's a more local niche story, and it's less interesting than they think, and maybe the audience isn't quite as compelled as they think they should be. So is there a an approach or an exercise that a startup can go through to think through what, who is this audience, what's the narrative, how do they get the most, and I'm thinking more specifically about press now, but how do they
Yeah.
get the most impact on whatever the story is, and think about
Yeah.
what actually is the story.
Yeah, so yeah, we like to take our clients through an exercise where, creating that the message framework, I think, is really important. I'm a former reporter. I have former reporters working for me. Ultimately, our job is to tell stories to media, and to influencers and to other organizations to help advance that story to the people we want to get closest to. So we do a lot of work, Aaron, with B2B companies. So companies selling and wanting to connect and work with other organizations. And so the exercise we take them through is, the first three key messages. First message is, what's the problem that you are solving? What is the problem that your client or your customer or your audience is solving? Number two question or message is, how are you solving that problem? And number three message is, how are you different? How are you different and better than anybody else when it comes to solving that problem? And then under that are the proof points to flesh out. First message, what's the problem? Quantifying the market size, the challenge that organizations are facing. Number two is talking about product, services, solutions, dropping in some examples of who you've worked with to demonstrate you understand how to solve the problem. You've got the right tools and services to do it. And number three is, who are you as an organization? Who's the leadership team? What are their experiences? Why should anyone believe in you as a startup that you can actually solve the problem better than the other organization or the competitor that they're talking to? That's how we like to talk. I think it's like how reporters like to frame up articles. But it's the proof points, it's the anecdotes, it's the data points, it's the customer references, if you have them, that really bring this thing to life. I mean, media today, and we do a lot of media relations for our clients, it's still predominantly what we are hired to do: get their stories told through earned media. So all digital formats of media, all broadcast formats of media, blogs, podcasts like this one, for example. Breaking through is incredibly hard. Reporters, they're being asked to write more faster. And so the more you can help the reporter write a really good, compelling story with everything they're going to need, is going to be is going to go a lot farther with this, getting that story told faster than normally. I mean, reporters don't have as much time as they did to to really not they're being asked to write so much more now than they ever have. It's just the ability to source stuff, to it's just critical that you build a relationship, you gain that trust with them, but you help them understand really quick why this is a story now and why they should care about it. And a lot of companies just don't understand. Just because you think it's news doesn't mean it's news or interesting.
Yeah, well, so I want to come back to that in a minute. What would you say to the entrepreneur who thinks about, news is dead, we're social media first, and we're creating all of our content, putting out that way?
Yeah.
What is why should they rethink what it may be considered more traditional earned media and how it could impact their business?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think, more and more, it's the earned, owned, paid social approach that we are doing a blended approach for our clients more and more, right? I mean, it depends, regardless of who your audience is, they're all consuming information through all of these channels. So I don't think it's necessarily one over the other. I think it's a combination of that surround sound that we talk to our clients about. That said, for startups who are looking to break through, getting a story in TechCrunch, for example, or VentureBeat, for example, or ROI and J, for example, is really important when it comes to their credibility, and why people should pay more attention to them. So I think earned media is still, and we know this from working with some of the largest organizations in the world to some of the smallest, is still incredibly important. That old saying, the thud factor of hearing the Journal or the New York Times hit the desk the next day and seeing your story, and it is still is still true today, but it's more so in the form of a click or a link or or a ding or whatever as you're clicking through digital stories as they run. But it's still, earned media is still, as I mentioned, very much what we do. And I think still very, very important when it comes to building a company's reputation and credibility, and telling their story. But it can't be the only, you've got to think about LinkedIn, you got to think about Twitter in particular, the two channels we do a lot of work with. And I think for startup organizations, for me, the first thing after you figure out what your story is, who your main audience is, the story you have for them, is then looking at, okay, how do I connect with them through not just earned media, but okay, are they on Twitter? Are they on LinkedIn? We spend a lot of time with our clients looking at their sphere of influence on social media and helping them connect with arguably their really important stakeholders, one-to-one on Twitter, one-to-many on LinkedIn, and it's an incredibly effective medium. Those are incredibly effective mediums for that.
So let's come back to the local national conversation, and
Yeah.
then talk about the maybe some strategies for Twitter, LinkedIn, because you talked about. I think there's a lot of founders who are very eager for the TechCrunch headline. You
Yep.
mentioned ROINJ.
Yep.
From our own experience, I can share how sort of splashier brands, but our audience, especially with TechConnect New Jersey, but being regional, I've been very impressed with how many people, business leaders, read some of those publications and how impactful they can be. So even with some of your bigger clientele, how do you think about the local versus the national impact and how valuable they are?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Back in the day, we would tier the media out, right? And you have the major outlets, tier one, and then super regionals, tier two, and then the locals, maybe tier four. I think it's completely disrupted now. I think reputation is built as much locally as it is nationally. I think with many of our clients who are looking to get to policymakers at a local level, who are read by policymakers at a national level. We put as much weight and importance on the local media as we do on the national media, because every decision maker is a homeowner, they're a consumer. They read their local, they want to know what's going on locally, but they also necessarily want to see particularly for CEOs and executives, what's the business community in my state doing today, right?
Yeah.
How are they fighting climate change? What are we doing as a community to fight climate change or healthcare or minimum wage? I mean, it's a responsibility that everyone has, and so therefore, to me, I ROINJ, NJ.com, are almost equal, if not as equal to the nationals that we deal with on a daily basis, and our clients absolutely see them as significant as I suggesting that they are.
So then let's talk now about how do you get the attention of the reporters who you're hoping will tell your story. We're going to come back to like how to tell that story, but
Yeah.
just the practical. Let's say they don't yet work with someone like you. How do they find reporters? What's the best way to communicate with them so that they
Yeah.
might get a reply, to their email?
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing is, remember, reporters are humans too, right? They have a job to do. They're very, very busy. They don't like people wasting their time. So and again, I wouldn't overcomplicate it in terms of who are the 100 reporters we need to go to. No, find the top 10 that matter most, right? Locally and nationally. And if you're in an industry, a vertical industry, if you're in the fintech sector or healthcare, find the 2 or 3 trade reporters that matter most. And I would just start with a very small, strategic, important set of media. And then we go about it a couple ways. I mean, it's the multiple touch points, right? Yes, I've been in this industry for a long, long time. I've got the gray hair now. People actually listen to what I have to say because I'm the old guy in the room. But the fact of the matter is, I'm still talking to reporters I started talking to when I was 25 years old, working for an agency in New York City. And we talk about personal stuff, we talk about business stuff. Not everything results in a story, and I think that's important too. Is building relationships with reporters starts with first, right? Hey, I saw your story about X. I thought it was really, really important. A couple of things, you may want to think about for the next time you do a follow-up story. Send them an email. God forbid you actually give them a phone call, right?
Is
You
that
know,
an okay thing in the industry to actually like cold call
absolutely.
them?
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't call them on deadline. So we usually call reporters, late morning, early afternoon. I mean, yes, it's more of a 24/7 news cycle, but most reporters between when the market opens and the market closes are still very much, preoccupied. So call them earlier call them in the morning, generally between 10 and 12, call them between 1 and 2. Don't call them in the late afternoon because they're generally all filing stories then. They're all on social media. So Twitter to us is an incredibly effective way to connect with a reporter, follow that reporter, like what they've posted, comment it, retweet, reshare. I don't know about you. I pay attention when people interact and engage with me on social media. So, so email, phone call, point out their story, show them you're paying attention to what they're talking about, what they're covering. You actually understand who they are and what they care about. You leverage Twitter as a one-to-one basis for them. And then if they're writing stories that you like, reshare them on Twitter and also on LinkedIn. I find incredibly effective way to engage. I have a person who works for me as a New York Times reporter. I can't tell you how many times he gets 100 emails a day from companies pitching him stories. Just think about that. There's one reporter at the New York Times, the volume of stuff he gets from companies who want them to write a story about them. And so, first it starts with are there any typos in the emails that I'm getting? Because if there are typos, I don't want to talk to this company. So make sure consistency, is there and it's professionally written and you understand who the reporter is and what they're covering. Tell them something that's actually going to be compelling. Here's why this is a story now. Here's why this is relevant to your readership. And here's what you're going to get that no one else is going to get. Reporters want access to information no one else is going to get. So give them advance, give them access, give them something that is going to give them a story that they normally wouldn't have. And that goes for every reporter anywhere. And then
Can
from
we talk
there,
about
just,
the length of that? Because I've been in a lot of pitch meetings and emails, and
yeah.
sometimes when it's 3 pages long or even 5 paragraphs long, I'm just like, this person doesn't
Uh,
understand how other people manage their time, and that
yeah,
it's a
don't
signal. How
keep it
long specifically should that first outreach be?
um, 3 to 4 sentences max.
Yeah. So
Yep,
even though you
yep.
got to get in a lot of information, as you just pointed out, in a really smart, efficient, short way.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I don't read emails longer than 3 or 4 or 5 sentences, and reporters certainly don't,
Most people don't.
unless they are expecting something in response to, and it's called like you got to hit them with the hot start, get their attention, get them a response saying this sounds interesting, send me some follow up information, right? Then send a little bit more information. You may not hear back from them because they're probably writing 4 or 5 stories at the same time. So be patient, and but no, I get pitch letters from my team, Aaron, pitch emails that are multiple paragraphs, and I'm like, guys, you've lost me after the first paragraph. So chop it
Yep.
down and hit me. It's sort of like when you pitch in a byline or it's an abstract. Hit me with an abstract, and once I
Yeah.
bought in on an abstract, then give me a little bit more information. But if you can't pitch a reporter, get their information in 10 seconds on a phone or in 10 words in an email, there's nothing there to it anyway.
Yeah, agreed. And you said it quickly, but I think it's so important to reiterate the point of relevancy and authenticity, right? Having liked
Yeah,
some of their things on social, having read some of their articles, and maybe you comment on the first sentence, loved your post on XYZ, think about this next time. Because they're
yeah.
used to getting, as you said, hundreds of these a day. And so if you're not paying attention, they think they're just on a long list, very quickly or easy to be passed over, I would think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Again, it's what's enabled us to create and maintain relationships over years or even new ones, right? I mean, we're creating relationships with media every day because there's new reporters coming on, every day, which is great to see that. I think, to me, there's nothing more important than journalism and the people who write about who are reporters who are keeping all of us honest, and transparent and authentic and trust, right? Trustworthiness is probably the most important thing for every organization today. But it's a matter of that connection. It's a matter of taking the time, but it's also a matter of showing them that you're paying attention to who they are and what they're all about. People,
Yeah.
as when I was a reporter, the only time I'd ever hear from anyone was when they were not happy with my stories.
Yeah.
That happens, right? Reach out every now and then and just compliment them on a story. help them shape the story. And I think it's also important for people to know that not everything then equals a story, but ultimately it's over time that it adds up. I mean, we've worked with some outlets where it's taken 9 months to get a segment to actually appear on a national program or a story to run in a national magazine. I know some local reporters here or outlets we work with in New Jersey. I mean, they've got a pipeline of stories that's 3 to 4 weeks out, right? So it's, unless it is tremendously impactful breaking news, big acquisition, something like that, you just got to realize the news cycle is so hectic right now that you just got to be patient.
What about the should entrepreneurs spend money on press releases?
Um, So yes, provided there's news in the press release, right? You don't want to become the person who's crying wolf. We've got now this next new shiny thing, and now this next too shiny thing. For me, for startups, it's a couple things. One is, acting and behaving as much as you can like a publicly traded company. So new customer wins, make a mid-year growth report, new additions to your team, talent, your team that you're bringing in, new products and services. But it's not, don't, for me, it's not version 2.0. It's give me something new and interesting. Don't keep giving me the same thing all the time. So, press releases, yes. I do think they're worth putting out there. I think they're worth paying to put out there. For search engine optimization, I think is critical. I think if they're doing an announcement with a JV or a partner that's a bigger name, brand association, equity is really important, for both employees as well as partners. So yeah, but I wouldn't just put out that, you just, I don't know, you got to be really prudent about what you are putting a press release out, Aaron, because the more you put out, the less people listen.
Is there value? Does it matter if, especially as an early stage company grows, if it's like the founder and CEO reaching out versus someone on the team who's leading media or PR? Is there
Yeah, so
value in? Yeah,
yeah, no, it's a great question because reporters love to talk to the person in charge, right? They want to talk to that person in charge. And so even with some of the largest organizations we work with, we put them in charge with the person. We put them in contact with the person in charge. They want to talk to the CEO. They want to talk to the co-founder, or the partners. And particularly at startups, the CEO is very much, the face of the organization. They are the voice of the organization. Many of the CEOs we work with were the ones who founded the company, had the idea, surrounded themselves with really smart people. But that's who the media want to talk to. The flip side of that is, you can kind of, just not distill, but you don't want to diminish the importance of who that CEO is and what they represent, right? So, you don't want to make them available to everybody all the time, because then there's no reason to want to talk to that person. So, and I also think it begins to start making the company look small if the CEO is the only one doing interviews all the time. So, if there's a chief innovation officer or, head of HR or chief growth officer, by all means, put those people forward as well. But I think out of the gate, to me, having access to the CEO, putting the CEO forward is also really important. And then I think dial it back a bit.
we're just about out of time, but I want to spend just a minute on newsjacking, like inserting
Sure.
yourself into the news cycle. Can you give entrepreneurs tips on how to be relevant with some major news headlines?
Yeah, sure. I mean, newsjacking is just something we do all day. It's a matter of what's going on in the news cycle. Whether it's crypto, whether it's payments, whether it's electric vehicles, fill in the blank. I mean, there are so many topics that are just in the news all day long. And a couple of things. One is paying attention to who's writing those stories. Number two is making sure you have the reporter's information, contact information. Number three is because the news cycle is so 24/7 now, stories are updated almost on a regular basis, almost by the hour, with new information coming out. Make sure you have something smart to say to a reporter who maybe you've written a story, that is relevant to who your company is. Send them an email. Let them know that you belong in the story. You've got a point of view, a perspective of what they're writing about. But I'll be honest, Aaron, newsjacking is a lot easier when the reporters know who you are and why they should care about who you are versus just emailing them cold. So all of this starts with first building relationships with the media, with the influencers, with the third parties who matter most, because when they know who you are, they respond to what you want to talk about.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, a lot to do here, and some great tips here. So, if people are interested in learning more, where can they find out more about, or potentially even working with you? Where can they find out more about the Harris Agency?
Yeah, no, look, I'm a huge proponent and a member of the board. I think what you're doing is great. I think New Jersey has an amazing stories to tell. I'm a New Jersey guy myself, 54 years, so have a lot of pride in the community and the businesses here. So I'm at peter@theharris.agency, no .com, no nothing, peter@theharris.agency. We have the Harris.agency website. So by all means, reach out. I'm on Twitter, PGHarris11, LinkedIn. So, love to hear from you, however is most convenient.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your support and
thanks.
appreciate Edison working with us on this Entrepreneurs Toolkit series. We've also got tips on fundraising, on legal. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already seen the others, check those out as well. Peter, great to be with you. As we like to do a lot of the high fives. So give me the 1, 2, 3 on the camera. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.